out there, Buzzy here, reminding you to be engaged in your community. Vote your choice. Let's hear your voice. Your vote counts. Today on the show, we'll talk to Plaquemines Parish District Attorney and incumbent candidate, Mr. Charles Ballay, number 73. So let's get on to the show.
I'm Imaginarium Studios with Plaquemines Parish District Attorney, Mr. Charles Ballay. Thank you so much, Mr. Ballay, for coming on the show and taking the time to sit and chat with us today on The Buzz. I would just like to say that we are absolutely honored to have you in the studio.
Well, thank you, Jackson. Thank all of y'all at the studio. Y'all do a lot of good work here, so it's my pleasure and honor to be here as well.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know what? Before I get into the first question, we kind of discovered this thing where we were making these interviews, and we found out that a lot of people of all different ages didn't really understand exactly what the DA does. And so I wanted to ask if you could explain to us and our viewers the role of district attorney in the judicial process.
The district attorney's role is a very vital part of the criminal justice system. One is in charge of every criminal prosecution in their jurisdiction, and here it's Plaquemines Parish. It's the 25th Judicial District, which is the entire parish. It used to be with St. Bernard as well, but we separated some years ago. So now it's just Plaquemines Parish. So it's in charge of every criminal offense that occurs here. In addition, we also represent some boards and bodies that are here, which is the school board and the hospital district board as well. And that's part of what we do. Years ago, you had the police jury as well, but that was stopped, done away with in 1960 when we went under Home Rule Charter, and the charter has its own legal department for the parish government, and that's with the parish president, the parish council, and all those folks. So we're in charge of every criminal case that we have here. Saying that, there are some matters that are referred to us by different federal agencies, and some matters that we have that the federal agencies take because it might be incidents that are occurring in multi-jurisdictions, and so they're better to handle it because it might be something that's in many states, the offense that's going on.
Bigger crimes or like
Yes.
organized crime?
Yeah, and I would say that when I was elected in 2008 and began in 2009, one of my things that I wanted to accomplish, and we did accomplish, it took a few years to get it done, it was a big thing, is we also have a concurrent jurisdiction of the air base that we have here in Bellchase. Before that, we did not, and offenses that occurred on the air base were strictly handled by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the federal system. But we had some matters sometimes that would occur on the base or off the base, and would go across the line, and we were better equipped to handle some because more of the incident might have occurred in Plaquemines side of the line as opposed to the base, and so we prosecute cases that occurred. In fact, we had some different homicide cases on the base, thefts, burglaries, lots of different things. And
So
that began in about 2010 or so.
So you did that system in order to make it more efficient, as well as to make sure that the cases were properly handled, more thoroughly looked through?
Yes, both of them. And your word efficient is real good because really our office, the district attorney's office, is really more efficient to prosecute most crimes in the federal system. The federal system is very big. They have a lot of good people that do the work. But they're not, it's more cost effective trying some cases in our system than it is in the federal system. So, for example, a burglary case or distribution of drugs and things that we can handle. We have a much faster process and simpler process than they do. They have many more rules and things that they have to go through. And so sometimes we do it. And we work with, saying that, because of what the air-based work, we work with NCIS, which you see on TV shows some, but we have cases with them and we work with them and they do very good work.
No, well, okay, I think that definitely clarified some stuff for me. I didn't realize how big of a system and a job that you actually held. You know, going into our next question, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing the district attorney office today, and how do you plan to address that challenge?
Biggest challenge probably is as we see things in America changing, and people in some areas are having a mistrust with police departments, DA offices, and the whole judicial process. So the biggest challenge is to make sure that people understand that we're there for them, that we're fair, we're honest, we apply the law, and we don't act on cases or anything because of who people are or because of race, religion, or anything like this. It's based upon the facts given to us and the law that we have that's being applied to it like this. That's what we do. So I think right now the critical thing is making sure that everyone understands that we have a fair system, and also we want to make sure that everyone knows that they can come talk with us. Our doors are open for them. Our phone number's available. My cell number's out, I think, with everyone. And so people can call and we can meet and discuss things. And we don't want people just to act on some supposition or some people's talking about things in a sense. We want people to know that they can come talk. We can get down to what the real facts are, what the law is, what we have. And we want to keep that honesty like this involved. And we want to keep that integrity like this and the confidence that people would have in the system. That's I think right now facing Americans, facing everybody.
I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that police departments face nowadays is trying to earn the trust and respect of the people, especially with all these different things and different cases involving police and very violent and very drawn out cases of police brutality and different cases that involve hate crimes and different things like that, and trying to instill a trust in the people, knowing that you'll be fair and honest with them and gaining that trust. Also, I didn't realize how you could just come in and talk about the crime. I doubt a lot of people actually know that you can just go and talk to you about different things and learn more about the law.
Sure, no, we welcome it, and let me just say that to make sure it's clear, that if we have a pending matter, we can't discuss it with others, that we discuss it with the victim, the people involved in the case, and in the defendant's family, not the defendant unless his attorney, they want to come in and speak, of course, together. But once a matter is completed like this, then you could talk to other folks about issues, but if a matter is pending, of course, the parties that are involved in that case, we can sit and talk with them, go over matters. But it has to be completed before you talk to others about it, because there's a lot of rules in place. Rule 3.8 is one with the attorneys. I know that you can't discuss matters to the public, to others out there.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that.
You don't want to influence people. They could be potential jurors or people that have some effect on a case. And so you don't want to do that to taint anything, to make anything wrong like this. Now, people that have an interest in the case, as I mentioned, the victim's family, defendant people, those you can speak with and go over things. And it's in your private setting, in your office, at a conference table is how it's done. But outside of that, you really, on a pending matter, can just say what you filed in court, when the next hearing is, what's going on like this. You don't, as a as a prosecutor, you can't get up and say, that guy's guilty, guilty, guilty. We're going to get him. That's wrong. You can't do that. That's against all of our rules like this. We have to be known to be fair to everybody. We have to be aggressive in prosecuting people, but at the same time, you can't go with any foul blows. You can't do anything like this that's not going to treat someone fair.
You got to make the system fair and follow the rules that would make the system fair, and not sway bias or judgment in the jury and make it completely fair for a case to actually go through. And I guess that makes sense for there to be a rule like that. It makes a lot of sense because of how just one piece of information can change the whole opinion of a juror or somebody who's prosecuting or an actual prosecutor. And you know what? I feel like that's a very important thing for people to know, especially when it comes to talking about the law and learning more about the law and how system of law works, especially in these trying times where there's so many different things that are going on. They're changing the views in our social society. But going on to our next question, what unique experiences or qualifications for your position have prepared you to lead the DA office in Plaquemines Parish?
Go on. I guess it'd be several, but one of the things is that I was an assistant district attorney for a little over 26 years.
Jeez, really that long?
Yeah, and as such, and before that, for 4 years, I was a public defender, like this, representing those indigent defendants who couldn't afford their own attorney. And back when I did that, the first 2 years of it, I think we did it without pay. You were just obligated to do it.
What, really? Like an internship? You did that for 26 years?
Well, I did assistant district attorney. That wasn't, that was not an internship. You were an assistant DA. You were an officer of the office in a sense. So in other words, I did that when I started out the first 4 years. I handled all the misdemeanors of Plaquemines Parish, all juvenile work, school board, hospital district, a number of things we did. And then after that, I became a felony prosecutor, and I did that until 2006. That's one of the things I know that qualified me, because I know I've tried, I think, every kind of crime we probably have in the book. A lot of them, murder cases, aggravated rape, armed robberies, lots of different cases. And so it gave me a lot of experience in trying cases on the evidence, on the facts, on laws that you needed to do. One of the big things that it gives you, too, when you have that many years and you do that much, the different experiences you come across and the different training programs. We go to conferences and training. It's something that's, one, required, and two, that if you really want to be good, you need to do it. And it's not just local, but it's across America. Some of these programs are put on by really superb people, big-time prosecutors. And so you learn from them, and the thing that you get after a while especially is you learn like this. You have to do the right things for the right reason, not just because. I know I had a class one time with Joe Britt, who was one of the leading prosecutors in America dealing with the death penalty. And his advice on it is, when you get it in as a prosecutor and get a case like that, if it doesn't make you get sick to the stomach, basically he said, if it doesn't make you want to go and throw up like this, don't ask a jury to come back with a death penalty. If it's not that kind of case like this, that's that violent and that bad like this, you don't go with it like that. And that's what you have to use in a lot of different situations. So like we have an asset forfeiture law, that if you have drugs in a property, in a car, for example, the car can be seized and it can be taken and sold like this. And when that was enacted, we were very involved in that. When that came about around 1990 or so, it became some law in Louisiana. The big talk on that was don't exercise, don't use that right, that authority, just because a grandson was using grandma's nice new car and he had one joint of marijuana in the car. It wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be the right thing to do. So you learn those things from experience like this, of what to do, what not to do as well. And so that's one of the things I know that qualifies me for the spot. And then I ran and I was elected district attorney in 2008 and started in 2009. And so the things that I would say that qualify me to continue on is the fact of running the office very successfully for the last 12 years. And that's a lot of different things you have to do as an administrator of an office. Obtain funding for the office is a big thing. The parish government furnishes most of the money for our office. State funds furnish some salary portion for the DA and assistant DAs, and we get grant funds from a lot of sources. We have a victim assistance coordinator, get approximately half of that person's salary, domestic violence money from the state for those people as well, and we get a lot of other grant funds that allow us to contribute to make office what it is. So you have to learn the administration of those parts of it as well, and staff, making sure that you have good people. I'm very fortunate to have an extremely talented staff, very smart, very dedicated. They work, because we've been under some bad situations in some offices that we've been in, some buildings we've been in, without a bathroom. Everybody, I think, knows that. It didn't matter. We still got our work done. People could have said, I'm not going to work like this. I mean, I know OSHA could have shut us down probably, but we had work to do, and we go to work. And for example, when we've had some fatalities,
some dedication.
We've had some fatalities here. When we've had a few of them like this that have been domestic violence issues, my staff, the people especially involved in that, it's surprising how they want to get to the office as fast as possible, go through the files, and go through our computer system and see, did we have them in the system? Is there something else we could have done? It makes you wonder about that stuff.
So they're really dedicated to finding justice and finding who and the what of a case. Also, I didn't realize you had so much experience in the field, and I didn't realize that you guys dealt with death penalty cases. That's something that I've definitely had discussions with different people, especially different people such as yourself, about cases like that, because I really wouldn't know what to do when it came to a death penalty case, because those cases are always so touchy and so finicky with emotion. They already have a connotation to them of quite literally death and negativity. It's very hard.
In Plaquemines Parish, we've never had the death penalty verdict, sentence of that type. We've had a few cases presented to juries with it, but their decision was not to order a death penalty situation, not to make that verdict. And so we've not had one here. Plaquemines is very fortunate. We haven't really less than, I think, a homicide a year now. So we're really very safe compared to other parishes, even the parishes that we're right next to. They have some horrible situations, and we're very fortunate that we don't. I really think it's because we have mostly good people down here, by and large, a lot of good people. is what it is. And so we also have neighbors that look after other neighbors, and law enforcement's out there, the sheriff's office and deputies.
That's one thing that I think definitely helps, that people really having a good connection with each other, as well as with different families, different people who do different service jobs like firefighters, police officers, even EMTs.
We do. Everybody knows each other pretty well, and so it really works well. And now too, we know with the economy, with the all patched down, we used to have a lot more workers that come in and out of the parish, and we don't have that as much. A number of things like this have it down at this moment, and so crime is definitely down. We're very, very, very fortunate for that. We know families move to Plaquemines Parish every day because they know it's a safe place. They can leave their bicycles out and all that. Some other areas, they can't do that. It's a problem, and so it is really. Now we still have crime, of course. Do we like that? Of course not. We try to work and do what we can. I would encourage more cameras and things at our entrances to our parish. We have 5, I think, places out in the parish. I think they should be well lit up, cambered signs. Welcome, be safe, don't commit any offenses here. Something of that type like this to let anyone know that if they're coming here from another parish, don't come down here to commit a crime. I know other places that have that, it works. And so I'd really like to see that. But that's something the parish government would have to do with, I think, the sheriff's office, highway department, a few other people. But I think it'd be a good thing to do. I think it would be somewhat of a preventive measure. And the other thing through the process of development is that one thing you learn after prosecuting so many cases so many years is that sometimes you say we have to have a better way. And we've created a number of things. When I ran for office and I wanted to put in a drug court, and we did. It took us about 1.5 years or so to get all that in works like this. What a drug court is instead of prosecuting somebody through court and putting them in jail, in prison really, because it's for a second, third offender of a drug offense, they can go, in alternative, they can go through a drug court program where it's very intense, rehab, meeting with the judge,
to reform them and get them off of their
and to graduate
addictions.
from that drug court thing.
Like a second chance.
Not a second chance for sure. Not everyone does. Now they're pleading guilty to the crime. They have a conviction for that crime, but the sentence is suspended, pending them complete drug court.
But instead of
If
just
they
sending them
complete
away
drug
and
court,
locking them
right.
away, it tries to aid
Exactly.
them and reincorporate them.
And you do it for people that you know are committing these offenses because they're addicted. It's not for somebody that has zero addiction problem and all they in it's for the money and they're big, some kind of big deal like that. That's not what drug court's about. It's for people with addictions. And you have people with addictions sometimes that'll sell a rock to get their free rock of cocaine like this to do what they want. And so it's for those purposes primarily is what it's for. And just for the stats on drug court, it has a high success rate. About 75% of the people that go through drug court satisfactory like this, they don't reoffend. Whereas in prison, those drug offenders that go to prison, it's just the opposite.
Yeah, because you have all those people
about
who
75% like this, I think it's 65 or so percent like this, reoffend afterwards. And so it makes sense. Drug court is you're hands-on, you're working with counselors, you're working with people that are drug tested regular, they have to get a job, they have to go to church, a lot of things you have to do. So it really works, it's great. So that having programs like this that I've done over time like this also makes me, I'd say, qualified to answer your question. And we've had other things that we've done like that. Project Lead that we've been with us a while, but we've enhanced it some. Senior Day, I have seniors where I teach them like this to be aware of scams, Medicaid fraud, all those sorts of programs. And so we do a number of things like this out there too. Truancy we put in place, which is a great program, because our stats also show us that the vast majority of people in prison do not have a high school education like this. And so if you keep somebody in school, you have a much better chance that they're not going to commit a crime, or not going to do something bad or stupid. And so we have a truancy program, and I think we've already had about 1,240 people in it now. And we run that. I know Ray Riley, I think, is my truancy officer in the office. And so when the school does its things to try and keep somebody or get them back in school, we're called in. And what the law has for us, it's a crime. You need to go to, you have to go to school, and the parents can be liable as well. So can be found with or encourage somebody to do what they should be doing. And the stick, of course, is the fact that there's a penalty perhaps of being criminally prosecuted. And those are the tools that we have to work with. We get those from the legislature. And saying that too, I've had a lot of experience with the legislature. I was president of the Louisiana District Attorneys Association about 2 years ago. And there's 42 districts in the state. And you learn a lot from these other people. You really do. And we push for some legislation. My office got enacted Act 399 which adopted Article 412.4 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, which before then you could have a person come in, a woman that was battered, a domestic abuse situation, and it also applied to child molestation, child sex offense situations, where the case that would come before you, like this, would be that case, that something maybe happened, you know, that day or that week or whatever it was, but something maybe that happened 4 months ago or 6 months ago would not be admissible because it's not relevant, it's not part of that proceeding, it's irrelevant, it's not part of that particular act. We said that we don't think that's right because if it's been a pattern, even if there's some time span between,
It's still
it
part
should
of the
be
offense.
considered by the trier of the matter, the judge or jury like this, and the legislature passed it, we use it today. It's one of the best new tools that prosecutors have in Louisiana to prosecute domestic violence cases and child sex offense cases, because you can bring in a history, you can bring in more information, and you know, people think about it when you go to the doctor. What's one of the first things they ask you? What medical history? How long have you had this? What have you done? What's happened in the past? They need to know that to be able to evaluate you to make the right decision. And the same to me for a trial of a case on somebody abused, a woman with domestic violence, or children like this with sex violence, sex acts. That history is very, very relevant. And so we have that in now. We got that done in 2016, I think it was adopted, yeah. And so some of those things, that legislative experience that I've had is a big thing that none of my opponents I know have in this race whatsoever, that I've done, testified before committees in Baton Rouge many times, talked with the governor at his office in the Capitol, as well as at
So you
the
have
office.
a lot of connections
A lot of
too,
it.
as well as
Met
experience.
with the governor. In fact, we did a lot of things through the years, and so it really helps to get things done because it's many different areas you have to work with. Even Washington, we've been with our senators and our reps in Washington on many issues that we need, and so it really helps like this to get things done. That's what we've done, and that's what I like to continue to do.
You know, we've been talking about the process a lot, and I actually want to ask you to walk us through the process. As in, for example, say somebody's arrested by Jefferson, by our police department. What happens next, and where do, say, you, the district attorney, come into play within that process?
Good question, Jackson. It varies a little bit on the type of crime that it is. Generally speaking, yeah, the police department, and it can be, of course, our sheriff's office, and it could be state police, wildlife and fisheries, the air base, the people out there, NCIS, all those different law enforcement agencies. You know, they make the case, and they arrest the person, and they get the information to us, the police reports, witness statements, evidence, whatever it is, and then usually, on average, I'd say we get it about a week to 2 weeks after the incident before our office gets any information. Now, domestic violence is different in the sense when domestic violence people are arrested, we're looking for those arrest and reports immediately because of Gwynn's law and other laws that we have today, we go to court immediately, like this when a bond is being set. We ask for a protective order in case they get released. And we also have, today, it's just a new law a couple of years ago, is gun divestiture laws where any guns they have is taken away and held by someone. So, because gun violence and domestic is of course, a serious problem. And so we at those hearings to make sure, and the judges though, it's pretty much automatic today, they know what should be done there. At first it was more, I guess, of our involvement in those things. And so those important things. Some of the hearings, when bond is set, which is, like I said, usually a day or two after the arrest, we're at many of them on the more serious crimes, the big felony crimes that we hear about, know something about, and want to be there, make sure we have a high bond, we have a good bond to hold them, whatever we might need. And we also look at it to determine, is there some issue of flight, and is there some issue of worrying about the protection of that defendant or the others, the victim as well, in a case. And so we have to be there to make sure anything needs to be known. Sometimes we get stay away orders or protective orders issued as well on things that are not just domestic violence, but other kind of cases as well. But after that, after the bond matter is done, like I said, then we get the paperwork, as I said, eventually. And when I say eventually, it takes some time, of course, for sheriff's people and all of them to get all the reports together. And part of it takes even longer because some things you have to send off to lab.
Yeah, you got to get evidence off of, like,
if it's a DNA test.
Yeah, DNA test.
It could be a month or two. And also, of course, if it's drugs or something else you suspect, it's got to go to the lab to determine, is that in fact cocaine or is it bone? Is it a real soap chip? And so you have to get all that information to know on that because you can't charge them with a possession or distribution of cocaine if it's not cocaine. You have to really know what it is. And so you wait for that information before you can file the charge. Now, the tricky part is the clock is running, and you have so many days in which to file a charge against somebody. Most felonies are 60 days, and so otherwise they get out of jail, they get their bond basically free. And if you want to keep them in jail, if you think they should, their flight risk or whatever it is, you want to make sure you file your charge. So you screen it all after you get all that kind of stuff, and screening is a very vital part of all DA officers' role. You get all that information and you review it, you read it. If you're only one of your assistant DAs, everybody assigns a certain work, certain things they handle. And screen it and go read it all to determine the charge that they have, the crime that's being charged, about the arrested for, and the facts as it meet it. So then what we do then is we file what's called a bill of information. It's basically a piece of paper, but it's just a formal charge with the court saying that, that I, Charles Ballay, as district attorney, hereby charge so-and-so with this particular crime, like this. And you specify it. It can be one count, which is one item, or it can be multiple counts like this, because it might be many different things that that person was arrested for. And the screening was really important, is to determine the facts that's given and the law that they say. Sometimes we up the charge, and that's not infrequent. That happens. In other words, if they arrest somebody for, we think that that person should be charged with a higher crime, more serious crime. That occurs sometimes. It's a regular thing you see in DWI sometimes. They arrest somebody in a DWI 1, and they maybe weren't able to run a full background check, and we find out that they have a prior DWI maybe in another state. Maybe they had a DWI in Texas or Missouri or someplace else, and so we could charge them with a DWI 2, 3, or whatever it might be. So sometimes it takes some time to get all those records to make sure you're going with the right charge and what you need to do. Sometimes, though, of course, the information is lacking on that charge, and we meet with the officers, the case officer, the detectives, whoever it is that handle the matter, to say, this is what we have, this is our concern or problem, what do you think, what do you have, what else can you do? Sometimes they can gather more evidence, they have time to get some more, and sometimes not. It is what it is. Like there's a ballroom fights, the old typical thing where a fight occurs, but nobody sees who threw the first punch, like that. And so if you don't know who hit who or what started like this, it's a big problem, like this. The officers arresting somebody doing it, did they do a bad job? Not at all. They did a good job. They just have to diffuse the situation. They got to make sure that they separate people and get peace in that ballroom of that community, and that's done sometimes. And I think police officers know that, and we might get it to where we're not going to be able to say that that person's guilty because they started the thing or threw the first punch. That occurs. But is justice done? Yeah. They had to quiet it down that night and something happened. And so it's what happens in the whole process like this. Now, some charges, let me say, some crimes are capital offenses, basically your murders and rape cases, aggravated rape like this, they have to be charged by way of an indictment. We have a grand jury process, which is, we've actually just impaneled a grand jury, selected people to sit on this grand jury just 3 days ago, and so now, and they sit for 6 months. And we call them into session. We say, it's already right now, October 22nd, we have a session where they're going to come and they're going to meet, and we're going to present evidence to them, witnesses, and things we have, and then we're going to suggest to them that this charge, ag rape or whatever it might be, like this we think is the appropriate charge. The door's closed. They make a decision whether that should be a charge or not. And it's called a true bill, or no, and a no true bill means no charge. And then that's an indictment is like the bill of information. That's the charge. And then it starts the process, of course, the court process. And that's what goes on there. So that's the initial part. And then, of course, I'm not sure if your question asked, it goes on from there. You have motion hearings to determine, they can file motions to determine, was it improper seizure, arrest, should it be suppressed, the evidence, was the constitutional laws followed. There's a lot of different legal things that occur.
I didn't realize that the process for you was a lot different. So from what I'm hearing, the arrest happens, evidence is gathered, and then presented to your office. Then you make a decision on what the charge should be, or give it to a higher or lower district, depending on the case. Being higher if it being a more violent or heavy crime compared to, say, something like just a robbery or a mugging where like a wallet or a purse was stolen. Like
it depends on the facts and the law that's relevant to that set of facts is what dictates what crime you should charge somebody with. And so sometimes information when somebody's arrested is not available to the police at that time, and sometimes it's discovered a little bit later, a few days later, and unarrest them for the first thing. They're arrested, they're in the jail system, it's already started. And so sometimes just a matter of us getting more information allows us to say, yeah, okay, you arrested for this offense, but it really should be this other offense. And that happens. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen sometimes, yes. And so, yeah, that's why your assistant DAs have to be well-trained, have to know what they're doing, and I'm very fortunate to really have folks that do. And we had recently a case down here where the magistrate, the first hearing, the judge has to make a determination like this, that the charges, what they have, fits what he has in front of him, there's probable cause like this to proceed. It's got to be actually signed document, and then the judge can, proceeds to set the bail and continue on. But the judge can, like this, if he finds like this that there's no probable cause at all, like this, is just release the person. It's very rare, but it does happen some. It does happen some, yes, because sometimes the information's just not there. And so, what I was getting ready to say is that we had one recently where the arrest was for people for distribution of drugs in Lower Plaquemines Parish, and we got it in, screening it, going through it with the methamphetamine case, that's what it was, yeah. And my guys, lo and behold, discovered that it was actually more than that. That actually they were using two girls that were involved with it like this for human trafficking. They were using them like this to have sex with the customers like this, so these people would buy drugs from them. And so with human trafficking, basically is an enterprise, a business, an economic enterprise in a criminal situation. And so that's what was taking place. And so we added human trafficking charges without it ever coming from the police or anybody else, but we saw what it was, and that's what it was. And we added that charge, which is a much more serious charge, and we charged with that and convicted all of them for that, and as well as the drugs. And so, so when you work like this, you have to be very careful of making sure you screen things, accurately, and you really have a good eye.
And very thorough.
Very thorough. You have to be very thorough like this to see that, did somebody miss something like this? You have to understand sometimes police officers are acting pretty fast. They have other cases. They might get called out on another call like this when they just prepared one report. Lots of things are going on. A district attorney is just like a judge in a sense, has the ability like this to have more time and ability like this to sit and review everything like this before they act. And so we do that. That's our obligation, and we do that to determine like this, what is the appropriate charge and how should it be handled.
All right, well, thank you for that thorough explanation. I actually very much appreciate that because I didn't really know it was that thorough of a process. And we have just one more question for you before we end the interview, and it's a question that we ask all of our guests here. If you could go back in time and give yourself advice when you were at the age of 16, what exactly would you tell yourself? What advice would you give yourself?
Well, that's a good question. Age 16, huh? You can go back in time.
I feel like that's like right before the pinnacle of, okay, I need to be serious in life and I can still goof off sometimes.
Yeah. I guess I was fortunate in the sense that I was always a good student. I mean, I finished valedictorian in my class. So I always liked studies and doing that. And I knew I wanted to be, I really thought even back then that I wanted to be an attorney. And so I studied hard and did well. I guess there's always something that you wish, me, it'd be more on a personal basis, and that sometimes you wish you just slowed down and spent more time with certain people that were important to you than some of the things that you thought was important. And not only at 16, it even happens today. Sometimes we think things are important to us, that we can't miss a certain show. We got to make sure we watch this football game on TV or something. And maybe there's something else more important that you should do than that. And that's probably what it is. But as far as for the practice of law or to become DA, I don't know if there's anything at 16 that I would have done differently that I can think of today at all on it. Although I would say my family was not in any law business or anything whatsoever, or prosecution kind of work, anything whatsoever. You kind of sometimes wish maybe you'd have gone to a courthouse or some setting to see things. But I don't know. Maybe that'll change things for me for good or bad. I'm not sure. But I know some people that are friends of mine that are attorneys, their father, their grandfather, everybody was attorneys. So they know all about what a law office is and a law practice is. And I know I never had that. I didn't know that. And so maybe something like this, to get exposed to it like this, could help you in some way, but I guess I've been fortunate in everything I've done.
I definitely think slowing down and appreciating the small things is a very, very important thing, especially now. Like, for me, I haven't really hung out or talked to a lot of my friends ever since the school year started, just because I've been so stressed with trying to keep up with online schooling and learn and understand what I need to know so I can make good grades. And it only really occurred to me a little while ago that I haven't talked to some of my friends that I usually talk to on a daily basis in over 3 months. And with the exposure and things like that, I think that's very important, because some people might get in their mind that they want to do this or they want to do that, and then when they actually get down the line, they realize that they don't like it or don't want to do it, when they could have figured that out earlier had they just gone and tried to put themselves in that setting and try and envision themselves in that setting.
Well, no, I hear that, and lots of times people ask me, what should they do? And it's very difficult. One thing you want to, I think, that I always tell them to say is that you want to do what you enjoy doing. If you don't enjoy doing something, it's going to be very hard to be good at it. It really will be, because you want to leave that job, that office, right away and go home or go someplace else, and that's not good. You have to be to where you enjoy it, and you can be better at it. And when you're better at it like this, it's just going to be easier on you all the way around. You can be more successful at it. And that's a big thing that you have to look for. And so that is really an important point. And I know a lot of people ask that today. They just don't know what they want to do. And that's rather difficult. And you can't answer it for them. They have to decide. And you just have to tell them to get some experience, get out there, get exposed to a few things, think about things, what they really want to wake up and do tomorrow. What do they want to do tomorrow type thing. And sometimes I know I've heard this in people in recommending people as far as friends or even marriage couples like this, is who do you really want to just sit and talk with, that sort of thing, and that's something advice for that side. But as far as work and careers, it's and also what are your talents, what are you good at? Some people have mathematical skills, great. Some people don't. Some people can't, don't have it, and so don't go in an area that requires the math like this if you're really not good at it. So you can be tested, and you do through school, through all the different aptitude test things you do, you can learn, and so that's one of the things to try to figure out. But it should not discourage somebody completely, because something you can learn, you can master, with some maybe you didn't study and you had it earlier, but so maybe you can do better. But I think it's important like this to make sure you figure out what would you like to do, and what are your skills, what's best for you.
I feel like that's definitely advice that other people can relate to and learn from, because those are some major things that, like the adults that I know, a lot of them have been like, I wanted to be this or this, and then I realized that I was not really hooked up for it or ready for that, or I needed to pay the bills, and what I wanted to do wasn't going to do that. And that's one of those things. I want to do something that I love, and that's why I wanted to go into ecology, because I love science and I love the development of technologies, but I also want to preserve and use the earth more wisely, because that's one thing too that I'm very concerned about. Is I want my children and the generations in the future to be able to experience the same nature that I had as I was a kid now, because I hear all these stories from my mom and dad about how much the world has changed and how all these different places that they have grown up have turned into these completely big neighborhoods. These places that used to be patches of forest where they used to hunt are now designated areas for like shopping malls and different districts for shopping and clothes and all kinds of different things. And I feel like those kinds of things are what are important to me, and that's why I want to go into ecology and develop new technologies that'll help green technologies, but also because I'm invested in it personally. I want to do it because that's what I enjoy. I enjoy science, I enjoy learning, I enjoy technology, and I feel like that's really the way forward for me.
That's what it is, that's what you need to go after for sure. I've been fortunate, I guess, in liking the law and in the prosecution work in the DA's office. It gives you really hands-on to really work with people and to turn people's lives around from going down a bad road to the right road. And that really is a lot of pleasure that you get out of it like this. There's a lot of satisfaction knowing that you've helped people. And a lot of times people, a lot of people want to help people, but sometimes the bureaucracy or the way the structure is You're not at the ground floor. Right here, this place like this, although this place helps people realize their art skills, some things that they can do. And it's, so you're hands-on, which is great. And my business is similar in the sense that I can really make a difference like this with our victims and with our defendants and all of our people like this, and making their lives better. And you don't get to make every one of them. You have to realize you're not going to solve all the problems at all, but you got to solve the ones you can. And when you do that, it's very satisfying.
Well, I think that was very insightful. Definitely very wise, too. That's some darn good advice for people nowadays.
Well, look, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to thank you for coming on the show. Honestly, I know how busy you are, especially during these times, and I'm honored for you to come and take time out of your schedule to come and sit and chat on The Buzz. I want to thank you very, very much, Mr. Ballay, for coming on the show. And this interview has definitely been more insightful. I definitely learned a lot more and have a way better understanding of what you do in the DA and the judicial system from now to before we started. I think a lot of people will also feel the same way. Other than that, I just hope that you'll come back and visit us and come and sit and maybe even talk on the show again with
Sure.
us.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's been my honor being here like this, and I hope I've answered your questions satisfactory. And this program, like I said, I've supported. I know when they have functions, I love being there whenever possible. I think it can and should grow. I think there's a lot more need for some young folks, people out there to have the ability to do some things through programs like this.